to the music, whatever it is. And I was like, well, yeah, like, I find that to be rude. I do. I don't love that. Now, I'm guilty of it sometimes. I don't hear as well as I used to. Headphones for a living, and then that's how I listen to music at home. I've just torched these ears. And I think that combined with the fact that I am due for a new iPhone, holding the phone up to my ear, I don't hear it as well. If I put you on speakerphone, I hear you perfectly. And so sometimes I think that's about, I'm due for a new phone. And I think there's a lot of that with that issue. But I was like, okay, yeah, I'm one of those people that finds speakerphone to be a little annoying. Where are we going here? I said, dude, jukebox and speakerphone, like, where are we going? He goes, well, I'm willing to bet you're old enough to remember going out on a date. And they may have even been a little, like, old for your generation. He's like, but you probably went into a restaurant, cafe, diner, something like that. And there was a mini jukebox on the table. And you put your money in it, and you could just listen to songs right there at your table. Because isn't it funny that we used to have that? It was common. Everybody had one at their table. Not an issue. No problems whatsoever. Somebody takes out their cell phone, listens to something on speakerphone, we think they're the worst person alive. Huh. Now, off memory here, Tommy, so you'll have to forgive me, right? I don't remember sitting in, like, and it was like the 24-hour diners that like, at least for me, where I kind of like placed those and that. And it was kind of cool, and we would do that, and I would murder my friends with Kiss, and then every time I saw them, I'm like, dude, they got Dr. Love. All right, dude, you guys are hearing it like 10 times in a row. Suck it. Here comes the Doctor of Love, buddy. And I just, I'd kill him with it, right? I don't remember, like, sitting in the booth annoyed about the sound coming from the other booth. Like, they seem to have done a pretty good job of keeping, I don't know how they did it. Maybe it's about where the jukebox was, and like, an association to your body and the body blocking some of the sound, getting in the weeds there. But like, you're not wrong. Like, that's a weird thing that, like, we used to just let people listen to things out loud at the table. And it didn't seem to impede on anybody else's dining experience, if that's what we're going to call getting pancakes at 3 o'clock in the morning after you're hammered. But that is, I feel like the phone thing is louder, much so. But like, this will age me for sure, but the boom boxes of like the 80s, remember when everybody carried one of those around on their shoulders? And like, people would bring those on public transportation and all that, and that was kind of annoying. I don't think it's all that much different than loud car sound systems, which I had as a kid when it was the thing to have, and I had all that, and the neon lights underneath the car and all that. I had all that stuff. And much like my dad told me every day, and you're shocked you got pulled over on the way home today, huh? Like, you're shocked. They just singled you out? Yeah, I know. The cops are unfair, right, Dan? Like, that's what, because I was like, man, cops, give me stupid cops. I don't understand cops. And he was like, dude, you are driving a please pull me over machine, and you are shocked that they are pulling you over. It's like that. And that's an interesting thing. I feel like the phone thing's louder and more intrusive. Also, what I can hear coming off of people's phones versus what was in those pre-built jukeboxes at the diner table. For a lot of people, they're like, they had that? Like, that's like, a lot of people are going to be finding out that's a thing for the first time. That felt less of an intrusion than sometimes the phone. Also, these days, man, like, but I saw a guy the other day. He was with his girlfriend too. Like, they were literally just watching porn on the phone in a public restaurant. And I was like, all right, well, if something went viral and you're like, oh my God, you see this? Like, I could understand it. But they were like posted up, like just eating the breadsticks, like as the DP rolling. And I was like, this is wild times, man. Like, I was not, and I'm not a prude. You know what I mean? I'm not really a prude. But when I saw that, I was like, that's getting kind of crazy there. But yeah, that's an interesting point, that we used to just allow sounds coming from every booth. It never really seemed to mix. I mean, notice every table had one, and it never got to the point where we were like, every third table has one, right? Like, it never really got to that point. It never seemed to be a problem. Now, what has grown is, I think a lot of times back in the day, people would have suffered in silence, because nobody expected anybody to care about what you were kvetching, Now it's like, I'm gonna whine and whinge, and I'm gonna get my hits because I whined and whinged, you know, and like there's a lot of that happens, and I've been as guilty as everybody else. Again, I always say I'm guilty of stuff. That's how I recognize it. I'll tell you what, you could put a mini jukebox on every table in every restaurant in America before I want people listening to their phone on speakerphone in public like that. I do think it's rude, especially with the phone conversation thing. Because it's like, dude, come on. I got to listen to this. I mean, it's not so bad as I walk by you and I'm just hearing your end of it, you know, but as we're all in part of this conversation. Plus, what does the other person think about you having them on speakerphone? There's a whole nother conversation in that. But we've kind of gone back and forth. You're not necessarily wrong about public listening, public sound. There's a reason why the Walkman took off. And it was because people were sick and tired of having to listen to everything everybody was carrying around in one of those, again, boom boxes there, right? And so the Walkman took off. And I remember my dad, when he first saw that thing, he was like, these kids, they're going to walk into traffic, they're going to get hit by the cars. These kids with their TikToking, right? Like, it was very much kind of one of those things. But the Walkman felt very much like freedom for the ears, man. All of a sudden, you could sit in the back seat of the parents' car and listen to what you wanted versus what they wanted to be listening to. And again, younger generations are like, dude, we've had that forever. I had a flat screen in the backseat of my mom's car, right? And it's like, well, we didn't, dude. You know what I mean? We had dub tapes that we, picked up off of our friends, and we had yellow Walkmans that were waterproof for some reason. Everybody thought they wanted to go off the diving board with a Walkman for some reason. I don't know what the hell that was all about, but there you go. I think there's a different thing there in cell phone, speakerphone versus jukebox on the table. But that was a little trip down memory lane, Tommy. I got to admit, man, I hadn't thought about those in a while. Let's get you into Primus. That show's August 5th, I believe, out at Blossom. Coheed and Cambria part of it, too. We'll take caller 12 at 330-450-7625. Toll-free option at 800-243-7625. Actually, hearing is going to be what we're going to be talking about next, because they told me something about Gen Z yesterday that I didn't believe, but you all have already proven me wrong. So we'll get to that next on Rock 106.9.
Live from the Hall of Fame City, and just as bad as NFL officiating, the Stansberry Show on Rock 106.9.
Welcome back to the Stansberry Show, where Joey Ansel out of Canton, he won his way into Primus and Coheed and Cambria. More tickets passed out tomorrow on the show for that. And Friday, too. Damn near through Wednesday already. This week's getting away from me a little bit. All right. More and more, a lot of the content on shows like mine is like, this generation versus this one, right? Or men versus women. And we already did one of those men versus women things, 7 o'clock. Apparently some women want a baby girl man. I don't buy it. That will be in the pod later if you'd like to grab that. But I saw like a sweeping declaration of Gen Z yesterday. And I was like, nuh-uh. No, they don't. But then I posted it. And so many of you were like, yeah, we do. We do that. And apparently it's not just Gen Z, it's millennials too. I was shocked to find this out. I make halfway decent predictions on a lot of things. I would have gone broke here. I got to be honest. They say that the majority of millennials and Gen Z use subtitles when you're watching television. I'm shocked by that. A lot of reasons to be shocked by that. We can't get people to read past a headline, but you want to read everything you're watching on television? Was shocked by that. So when I posted this, I knew I was going to get a lot of different comments here, and thank God, right? A lot of different viewpoints. We can kind of address them. Not maybe all of them, but, a good portion of them. And a good buddy of mine, a guy I play golf with a lot, that guy named Jody, he commented, he goes, oh, it's because they're all addicted to their phones. And I was like, okay, well, I assumed this was going to be a pretty heavy answer here. But I would have bet the other way, that because they're addicted to their phones, that they don't want subtitles on their television shows. My theory was, this happens to me all the time. Do I really want to watch TV, or do I want something on in the background? as I Amazon shop or look this up online or do this. There's a little multitasking in entertainment now. You used to like pull out a record, kind of lay on the couch, just kind of listen to it, kind of immerse yourself into the experience. We're immersing ourselves into 7, 8 experiences all at once. The point I'm driving to is a lot of television shows, especially comedies, I don't feel as if I need to look at the screen. I can hear it and be good with it, while I can then look at my phone. I wish I wasn't. I'm not saying this is the best way to be doing it, but like that happens to me, right? It's why I've said like certain shows I love, like Severance on Apple TV. I've told you a million times how much I love it because I can't just let it run and listen to it. You have to watch it. The facial cues are big. What's happening on the screen behind people when nobody is speaking for long stretches of time, it's very different, right? By the way, I noticed this on attention spans on things. I watched High Plains Drifter last week, I think it was. I had it written down on a pad in my house. I forgot to bring it in with me. I believe you are 9 minutes into High Plains Drifter before anybody speaks. Imagine that today. It would never happen. Like, never happen. Back to the subtitles and watching television shows. So I'm shocked if the addiction to the phone is the issue. I would think, well, no, they're just turning on something they've seen a million times, a little Ted Lasso, a little The Office, and now I can be on Amazon while this is rolling in the background. I'm just kind of listening to it. So I'm not sure it's the addiction to the phone is the issue. Jake says, I hate to admit this, man, but you know when I like subtitles? When I'm eating. And that is kind of odd, right? Like I can be sitting on the couch sometimes and everything's at a perfect volume. But if I snack on chips, I'm like, why can't I hear anything? Right? Like there's something in that. Jake's a little bit right there. Jill says I do it so I don't miss dialogue. But when I actually get to watch adult TV shows, it's when my kids are in bed, so I have to keep the volume low as well. Okay. So a lot of people said, well, dude, I don't want the volume on things that I'm maybe watching that might not be visually inappropriate for my children, but maybe what's being said may be inappropriate for my children. So like they're not looking at the screen, they're not this, but now I can just kind of read it. That I can understand. The protecting, the keeping of the youth, right? Keep them pure. I can understand that desire there. That I can get. Not looking to disrupt the house with the noise. Again, I'm deaf because of all the headphone listening that I've done in my life, both at work and home. That I am a loud television listener, for sure I am. April says, for me, it's about the fact that I can read faster than I can hear. Now, I process better hearing than I do reading. I will remember things better having heard it versus reading. Which is why I actually started to read much more at the beginning of this year. I read a lot for work, yes, but for like casual entertainment, relax, it's never really been my thing because of how much reading I do for the job. But I wanted to start picking up the skill again. Like, don't let this skill just diminish because you're allowed to let it diminish now. Let's try to stay fresh up on it. But I would admit to you that if I watch something, if I hear, like if you say something to me, I'll remember it forever. If I read it, yeah, there's a chance I'll remember it forever. Maybe, maybe not. Megan says, oh yeah, I have them on 100% of the time. Dan, I have 2 energetic kids. It's a requirement anymore. Brandon, so much better. I use subtitles for all shows and movies I watch. Jennifer, I'm Gen X and can't watch without them, so it's not just the millennials and Gen Z there. Buck says, I used to work with Buck. He says, I know we do, but I'm a boomer. Rebecca, my ears are too dumb to comprehend what I'm listening to by themselves, I guess. Plus, it helps with shows that alternate between loud noises and soft speaking. So, yeah, that was a pretty big, heavy, Jesus, Dan. That was a pretty common comment, right? And I have a pretty young guy on staff now in the sales department. We've done some hiring recently. We hired a young guy who had plenty of experience. His name's Xavier, and he and I seem to get along great already, right? Hasn't been here all that long, but we've made fast friends, he and I. And he's 24. So now anytime I see stuff like this and I see him in the hall, I'm like, yo, man, what's up? You into this? You know what I mean? And I kind of like, speak for your people, right? Like I kind of get on him. And he said, well, like, I have a little bit of a hearing issue, so I do this. He said, but if anything I've seen that I'm watching live, I may not. He said, but, if I'm rewatching something, I probably do. I have a little bit of a hearing issue. And I kind of do that. I was like, oh, well, that's interesting. A lot of you made it about the fact that all the social media videos, reels and, clips and all that stuff, that people are putting subtitles in those because of how many people are watching their phone in situations where you shouldn't be. And now you don't necessarily need to hear it. You can just kind of read it, maybe keep the volume down low on the bus, subway, whatever it is, and you can still then have your reels. And if you got accustomed to it through the phone videos and now you're like, oh, I kind of like it, and that's how it ends up on the television, that makes sense to me. That really does. That's a way of being addicted to the phone could lead to subtitles being on the screen. I'm not sure if people are addicted to their phone. It's like, well, make them read the TV. It's like, well, how many things am I going to be reading at once there? So I wasn't sure that was it. Carla's like, what the hell's going on? Can't we just watch television? And, well, yes and no. I used to have a problem where I wasn't able to hear as much on my television as I can now. I have a resolution for it, and I think a lot of you are watching television with subtitles for this reason, and I may have a solution for you, and we'll cover that next on The Stansberry Show.
Give Stansberry a piece of your mind. Use the Talkback feature on the iHeartRadio app and let him know just how wrong he is. It's just wrong. The Stansberry Show on Rock 106.9.
Welcome back to The Stansberry Show, where we've been talking about subtitles. Z, they can't get enough of it. I thought this was one of those, hey, they're doing this and everybody was going to fight online. I thought it was one of those fake rage stories. And so I posted it yesterday at Stansberry Show, The Stansberry Show on Facebook, and I said, they do? Right? And so many people were like, yeah, we do. And so I got a couple of young coworkers in the building, Josh being one of them. He heads up our promotions department. Josh just got married and he's all of 30 years old, right? And so during the break, I walked into his studio and said, yo, man, I need you to answer some stuff. I said, I'm told people your age love to read, the subtitles on television shows. I was like, you do that? You and your wife do that? And he said, well, not always, but they have a couple of shows that they said, his thing was, I use it as a reference tool. So when watching Game of Thrones, for him, some of the accents were a little too thick. What'd they just say? What's happening at Pitt? There were some subtitles in that because it was like, what? What's happening here? I can understand that. The other day I was telling you I got sucked all the way into Premier League soccer and, watching that sport and all of that. And I was like, I don't even know how it happened. But yes, I do. I forgot how it happened, but this is how it happened. Much like Josh, I was watching something on Netflix. It was called Sunderland Till I Die. And it's about a football club, right? And you can barely understand anything anybody is saying in that. And so there was a little subtitling in that, and I was like, okay, now I understand who's who, I understand who's saying what. So that I can get, right? He said his wife found Bridgerton, which I did not see to be a very low volume in its recording, and so she apparently was watching that with some subtitles, and I could understand that. And that's what I thought this was all going to come down to, was volume, and we'll get there here in a second. As I was making the point that I'm surprised that, the younger generation's about reading this, as, nobody reads anything anymore, and all of a sudden we're going to read TV shows. I thought that was a little strange. And people kept telling me they're addicted to their phone, I was like, well, then that's all the more reason you want to hear what's coming from the screen so you could be on the phone and do that at the same time. And the point I kind of missed here, and thank God we have the text line at 330-450-7625, because so many of you straightened me out here. And they said, the point you're missing is this, is that we are addicted to the phone. We recognize it and wish we weren't. So if I turn the volume down on the show, I turn the subtitle, not that I'm not listening to the audio at all, they claim, but if we turn it down low enough and I put the subtitles on, now that's how I keep my phone out of my hand. Because I'm not going to know what's going on, because I can lay around and listen to it, like you were talking about what people will do at the office and Parks and Rec or whatever it may be, your, comfort blanket show, right? I was like, okay, that's a decent point I did miss, right? That if it's an exercise on how to get back to attention-based viewing, and all of that. I mean, I'm thinking about sports right now. The amount of sports I used to watch intently versus now, it's like, well, I'm live tweeting it, so I'm probably going to miss a great, touchdown pass here because I'm still talking about Nick Chubb running for 7 yards on the last play. You're not wrong. We've lost the ability to just kind of sit there and watch something. I've said that's how I judge television and movies now. I'll keep my phone next to me. And how long you can keep me off my phone, how long you have me entertained without me reaching for it, is definitely on my list of things on how I judge whether or not this is a quality television show. For me, not necessarily whether it's good or bad for everybody, but like, this is obviously, like, if you hold my attention, I'm in, right? If I'm on my phone too quick, it's probably 3 episodes of this and then we're not going to do it. The accent thing with Game of Thrones does make sense to me. I didn't seem to have as much problem with that show accent-wise as I've had with some others, but, welcome to, different experiences for different people there. Now, the volume of the shows is all over the map, right? Like, I got a lot of that response, and I would agree, right? That there can be that. There can be a difference in, the show's volume versus the advertising volume, too. That can be different. So a lot of people are saying, look, man, I'm just trying to keep the volume at one place. I'll read, and that I can kind of, take that issue away. A lot of people are just like, dude, I have trouble hearing things. Now, my hearing's not great. Again, I was kind of forced to listen to most of my music in headphones growing up. I chose a career that headphones were part of it. I have torched these ears, baby. It is over, right? But I have some trouble hearing some stuff. And so back in the day, I would find myself, well, they were speaking in a war movie. What? Say what? What? And then all of a sudden they land at Normandy, and then it's like, oh my God, this is ungodly loud. And it would be like a completely different experience because of how things are recorded, right? How they're filmed. A lot of times people now, everything's 4K, assuming you have a 4K TV. I'm guessing some of you do. I don't know if it would be most. And this, a similar thing can happen with recording of audio now for entertainment as well. I found this, that when I finally connected my soundbar and subwoofer to my television, the problem of I can't hear what they're saying in these new shows and all that stuff, it completely went away. Now, I would have never bought one of those. Jennifer got me that as a present, and I've said this about her. This is what makes her a great gift buyer when she buys gifts. I mean, honey, right? I mean, you kind of phoned it in the last couple of years. But anyway, but she bought me one of those, and it's a perfect gift because she knew I wanted it. She knew I would love it and use it every day. Would have never bought it myself, right? And that's what makes a great gift. And so I just bought this brand new, ginormous, big monstrosity of a TV, for this NFL playoff season that we got let down in. And I had the soundbar and subwoofer connected when they hung the TV. I found that issue now of whether or not I can hear this versus like the explosions are too loud, dialogue's not loud enough. That's over now in my living room. When just the speaker coming out of the TV, no, excess, sound equipment there. It's a different viewing experience. So I expected a lot of I can't hear this, but I can hear the explosion, and I'm wondering surround sound, that kind of things. A lot of things are recorded and designed for that. And if you're not running it through that kind of system, you can have a wildly different audio experience throughout the program. And I thought a lot of it was going to come down to that, but so many of you are already writing in going, no, dude, I have that. I have one of those. I have that. And it's still an issue for me that I just want to be able to watch it and read it. The kid thing I totally get. Robert says, well, we've always been stupid, so there's so there's just that. Christopher, we have 5 kids who don't. He's not telling me to STFU. He's saying they don't STFU. Okay, fair enough. Heather says it's too distracting for me. Danielle says, because I can't hear anything and I'm only 37, right? I was telling Josh, again, 30 years old, works across the hall from me, great guy, could not be a better guy. I was telling him, if you would have told my generation, hey, buddy, you got to read Inspector Gadget, we would have been like, shut up, nerd, right? Like, we would have, my generation, So like maybe let's not do that either. I like the idea of, no man, it's because you are right. The addiction to the phone is so strong that I do want to watch things, but I've fallen victim to an addiction here. And if it's loud and this and that, I'm going to be on Amazon and I'm going to listen and I actually want to consume. That makes me happy, you know. And if I can use a little optimism here, and it's not my default position, but let's do it, that will create more visual language in entertainment again. Like, I saw the guy who directed Dune say, you know, dialogue's boring, and that, you know, movies are a visual medium. And it's like, people of course took that quote and like dragged it to the far end of the earth. And I'm an Aaron Sorkin fan, where like literally the dialogue is all he does, and that's why I love it, is because it's all about the pen. But I understand what that guy's point was, that a little bit of moving picture is supposed to wow you a little. And so if we're going to get back to reading a little bit and it gets our attention back on the screen, I would hope then through that down the road, we will get much more visual stuff baked into the entertainment. But when I like I said, I speculate a lot, right? And I look at stuff, I'm like, this is true, that's not true. And I feel very comfortable gambling on what my opinion is. Now, and I know I don't get them all right. I mean, God knows I don't get them all right. But I normally feel pretty comfortable gambling on my opinion. I would.
Show on Rock 1069.
Welcome back to the Stansbury Show. Well, we've been talking about subtitles and entertainment. Apparently, younger generations are falling in love with it. A lot of people talking about how they can't hear as well. A lot of people got young kids running through the house. We're trying to pay attention. Shut up, little kid, right? And some people said, look, man, what I'm watching on the screen may not be visual accents in shows, right? Like, he was watching Game of Thrones. He's like, dude, Jon Snow's fine. Him I could understand, but some other characters, you get kind of lost in the shuffle. He says he uses it as like a reference tool. Like, he doesn't start anything with the subtitles on. But another thing that came in off the text line quite a bit, Becky was one of the people who had texted this in. Again, 330-450-7625 to send those texts. And Becky said, you know, for me, it started with Squid Game. Now, again, I didn't watch this. It was like a smash hit. This is one of the very few things when it breaks wide that I didn't get my eyes on. Normally, when something breaks pretty wide, I'm like, all right, we'll have a frame of reference here. A little bit of a competition show. I don't want to speak way out of school here, but was that Korean? Again, I don't have a ton of experience with it, but not a whole lot of English speaking stuff going on in that. So she was like, we wanted to watch it. We were all in. We subtitled that. And then through doing it once, we realized, oh, this isn't necessarily the worst experience. And so they started doing it with more things, right? I was like, okay, I can understand that. I've been told here that certain movie theaters, if you get like a premium viewing of something, that's what's involved. Is that some premium seating and premium viewing theaters, that's part of it, that the subtitles are coming back to it, you know? And that people are liking it so much. And I think it could be about getting your attention back on the screen. I don't have a ton of time here. We may dig this back up again tomorrow morning. But I saw some videos of a movie theater for Dune 2. And a guy said, look, I know I'm about to bitch about people being on my phone while being on my phone to show you what they're doing. He says, but I want you to see what's happening in these theater seats. These tickets were like $20-some, whatever the hell it is. It's an early release of this movie and like all this stuff, right? And he goes, they're not even influencing. It's not like they're standing there going, about to see Dune 2, blah, blah, about to see Dune 2, give me my likes, right? I need my algorithm kick, right? He's like, they're not even doing that. He's like, they're not even typing texting. He's like, look at them. Movies rolling, they're literally just finger on the screen, scrolling up. As in a movie theater is going to be distracting. I know I have had wild predictions about the movie theater, and God knows I was dead wrong about viewing experience. I get a better viewing experience, right? Like, I think that watching something long form, and like, if you would have told me, I don't know, 10 years ago when I started this job, was voices, it either like drives you crazy or you kind of like it. Rush was a little bit like that. Billy Corgan is like that for a lot of people from the Smashing Pumpkins. I've been lucky enough to see Primus and Coheed and Cambria, not together, but I have been lucky enough to see them both. Coheed put on a great show at, where was that? Was that Tower City Amphitheater when I saw that? Yeah, I'm pretty sure. And Primus is a band, like, they're a little like Rush for me. And I'll listen to Rush more at home. I actually did a deep dive on them about 2 weekends ago, and I was like, damn, there's so much good stuff in the Rush catalog. But Primus is one of those bands that I'll always go, and I respect Les Claypool. I respect the living hell out of him. I've met the man. He was super nice. But, like, I don't love their music. I don't love it. See them is one of those things, man. They're craftsmen. There's a little Dave Matthews in that. Like, I don't love Dave Matthews' music. I like it. I don't love it. But they are decent musicians. And so when you get there, like, oh, all right, I get how people are into this. So we'll make sure you get your Primus and, like I said, Coheed and Cambria tickets. That's next week, starting Monday on the show. We'll get those passed out. We got through a lot today. Iconic sports picks. We ran you through the Daddy Academy, how to pick up your dream woman, reminded you that physical copy is the best way to own your entertainment. Talked a little Snoop Dogg smoking weed in front of his grandkids. Caitlin Clark, man, action-packed show today. If you missed any of it, pick up that podcast shortly, WRQK.com. Aside from that, I am done for the day. Not back live again until next week. Stay safe out there. Be good to one another. And do, in fact, meet me here Monday morning, 6 a.m. for another week of the Stansbury Show on Rock 106.9. Hopefully you have a great weekend, and hopefully I run into you somewhere around town.
You know that Big Bargain detergent jug is 80% water, right?
80% water? I thought I was getting a better deal because it's so big.
If you want a better clean, Tide Pods are only 12% water. The rest is pure, concentrated cleaning ingredients.
Ooh, pass me the intercom thing.
Content based on the Leading Bargain liquid detergent.
It to begin with, and now you got this going on in it. By the way, not about the golf at all. It's literally sold. We're cutting down on all of this. This sport needs. NBA is going to suffer ratings.